Alex Ansary here on this evening of February 15th, 2017. Here to talk with you about the new dark ages that America is in and what it means to actually survive the challenges that we're facing spiritually. I'm up here in the loft. I have a couple of battery-powered LED lights, so it's kind of new for me to be doing videos up above as I prepare for sleep. You know, there's a certain hour of the night in which we sleep, a certain period. We're tossing and turning, and we're in between the so-called state of being awake and then that part of us that is still getting the download or still having the epiphany. And at times, the sense is incredibly strong. And we could try to shake it. I could try to avoid controversy. But it doesn't work that way. The kinds of things that I've been picking up on cannot be shaken off or erased from my consciousness. I hear that many of you want more dialogue regarding the archons. I can see the great number of you can see the diabolical nature behind this race bait machine, and it is frightening. There's a reason why I left that comment on a recent video where the person takes their stab at me, because I wanted you to see. I wanted you to see the mentality that a lot of people deny exists. In the depths of the misery that comes from a world that says that you're not as equal as the rest of the other humans. I've always believed that everything happens for a reason, including our lifetimes. And that in the grander scheme of things, there are no victims. So I acknowledge that I've come here to live out this life and to speak to you about a number of controversial topics that without a doubt gets the ire of those entities that have a vested interest in maintaining control over this planet. To maintain control over aspects of this domain, having control over human consciousness is imperative. And those that come with the sword of truth, those that come to unlock minds from this matrix, they find themselves a target. But the truth is, people can find themselves a target even if they aren't shining the spotlight on the darkness of this world. There's a purpose to being alive. There's a gift of communication. There are people that are misusing their gift of communication. And as the saying goes, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And from seeing the statements of many on some of my videos, it's like the gates of hell have opened wide. Fortunately, despite thousands of years of ancient knowledge, which includes knowledge about the unseen forces and how they dabble in the affairs of man. It is amazing to see so many focus on a physical alien invasion instead of take a closer stab at the ultimate question: what is happening to human consciousness today? I don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen to this earth long term or certain nation states, but within our lifetimes, we're about to walk through a fire even greater than that which we have seen in some cases in World War II. And that's what's frightening about the rhetoric, the machine-like rhetoric, the talking points, very similar, very absent of true independent thought. Anger, insults, race baiting, calls for violence, calls for nuking countries, calls for attacking American cities. Where is this coming from? And you know as well as I do that we didn't see this kind of rhetoric during Bush and Obama. Many of us are being tested now. And like in the days of an inquisition, bound and tortured. And the way in which the teachings of Christ were manipulated by the church and their persecution of the Gnostics, those they called the heretics, that did not bow down to the God or the fallen one, many believe, of the Old Testament. A deity in the Old Testament that is called for race war, that is called for ethnic cleansing. So as we see these world religions that have misled so many, as angry as some people may seem to be at religions, they have no problem demonizing whole groups of people ethnically as radical Muslims or otherwise, without even opening up their ears to what some of them actually believe. As a person of Middle Eastern descent, with specifically an interest in a Gnostic understanding of the world situation, something that parallels before I even knew what some of these Gnostic ideas were about the fall of this world. This knowledge has always been with me, and for reasons I don't know fully why. And I look at what I've put out there with regards to the sun and solar flares, and how ancient of a study this actually is, and how important it will be for future generations to understand this data. I look at my off-grid lifestyle and my depart from the pleasures of the flesh. And I knew about the Buddha early on, but like that particular teaching of his, many of these things through my experience in Portland, I came to my own awareness of, to a point where many years ago, I came to realize that we are in a process of remembering. And many of us share a true spiritual ancestry. For some reason, we've been cast down into this place, and we're trying to find our way out. But one thing is for certain: there will no falling out, climbing out, ascending for those that have found themselves caught in this archonic web. Psychotic statements, violent threats. You see, when people are literally like hooked into this presidential matrix, it's like they're channeling foreign energy. They're not really themselves, and they're not really thinking independently. I can see ways in which there are collective forms of consciousness that are not necessarily the most evolved, that are emanating out of this internet ionosphere, if you will. I've seen videos of mine that have gone viral in which people have attacked those videos, and I've seen the nastier side of the YouTube comment section in a way that I've never seen before. And when you start seeing like a culmination, like around like the last full moon, and a lot of psychotic comments left around the web, I can see increasingly how mankind, without even knowing it, and womankind, is susceptible to these major changes, from full moons to solar flares to other celestial influences. And instead of people understanding their emotions and why they're feeling so angry and why they're feeling so prone to anger and why it makes sense to them to attack other people or to hope for violence or to hope to see a civil war, these souls have been conditioned to participate in behaviors that's going to lock them into the frequency of this type of a world. There are beautiful things about this planet. And like with Lord of the Rings, it's more or less like we're seeing the armies of Saruman via Sauron wage war upon the earth to divide mankind. Unfortunately, if you look at the small print and details of Lord of the Rings and others, you'll see Africans and Persians working on behalf of Sauron. And you will even see the subtle Aryan supremacy behind the kingdom that takes on Sauron's forces. Now, I think the Lord of the Rings is an amazing work of art, the written classics, and I think at some point I should go over this, because what you're seeing in a movie like that is really telling you a deeper story about the world that we're in right now. You know, all-seeing eye symbolism, twin towers, and everything. But Hollywood and others, and even, you look at some people that talk about the Archons on YouTube, they've confused race. They've gotten on board the dark grid. They've taken soul out of it. They've chosen to ignore soul in mankind and the idea that we each have free will. As people also confuse multiracial with multicultural, as they also demonize other cultures to kind of gray the lines and create this hysteria. And so what I say to you, and I remind myself, we're here in this domain for a reason. But there's a purpose behind it, and it's to evolve to a state of sight, to where we can see things as they are, and then act appropriately to evolve our souls in whatever way we can, and that includes helping others. Even if some of those that are watching are throwing incredible amounts of negative energy, why? Shoot those kinds of arrows. There's another story that I'll bring your attention to, and there's a scene in The Law of the Sun, the anime, which I mirrored on this channel. You can also see the same scene played out in Little Buddha, starring Keanu Reeves. When Maya, the deity of illusion, comes to the Buddha, first he tempts him with his sexy daughters. Then he overrides that temptation, and Maya comes around with compliments about his amazing state of enlightenment, claiming that he is Brahma, or a higher level deity that is recognizing the Buddha. And then when that didn't work, there were the threats that Maya, the deity of illusion, brought to the Buddha, as a mirage of an army stood before him. hold back their flaming arrows. Something out of that Lord of the Rings scene, the invading barbarians, the threatening situation, the attack of the orcs. And despite that threat, that fear of death, the Buddha overcame that as well. And Maya, the deity of illusion, was removed before him with a sense of great anger and disappointment. We now face this Maya. We now face this devil. We now face this archon of deception, of illusion, of inversion. Forget what science is discovering with some of the planets. There's an agenda behind that, but there may truly be other existences, planets, realities, maybe even beyond the planetary situation, beyond this universe. And it's possible for humans to live another way. And it occurs to me, for those of us that are in this world for whatever reason, we have work to do to get to that place. And to do that, we have to help this world evolve to a higher state of consciousness, and we have to do so in the face of the threats, what some people call ethnocentric. I've talked about the left judging me in the past, before all this Trump hysteria, and the reason why is I always brought a Gnostic view to the situation, which bothered the atheistically leaning. But I didn't let it stop me because I wasn't doing it for popularity. So, there is so much information that I'm going to continue to put out there, but much of this is there to benefit future generations. Because as we go into the new dark ages, people need to know where they came from. They need to know what happened here. And they need to remember that they're not a victim. They are individuals with free will, but they're a part of a soul collective that came here to live through these times. There are choices to make. And there are miracles, and there are angels. Some people call them aeons, as opposed to the archons. But they don't necessarily work in the way that a lot of the New Agers think, that are involved in channeling. They work behind the scenes to those that are an asset. And I heard in a recent video to steer away from the term God and focus instead on universal creator, because of the God matrix and the false light that so many are enslaved to. We're here to grow our light, not be dependent on anyone else's light. We're here to grow our own light. But in order to do so, we're going to be challenged, we're going to be pushed, we're going to be threatened, we're going to be insulted. But there is a horizon beyond this fall of man that I can see. Even if I can only see it in spirit. And in the darkest of night, metaphorically speaking, with regards to the darkness that is falling upon mankind, a light, no matter how small, shines that much more bright. We are that light. And we have, collectively, the ability to take down this dark grid. I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetimes, but we are a part of a process. And for those of you that are also part of that process, you've seen the pushback from human beings that act like they've checked out and they've let something else walk in. We have to walk over the coals of this new reality without fear. This is a picture of my friend Angel, who does the art, and I helped design AlexAnsary.tv. I am a Pisces, born February 25th, 1980, and we have a couple of fish swimming in different directions. It's important, the yin yang of things, to look at things from different directions, as above, so below, and the balance, the masculine, feminine. We here with our light are here to bring a sense of balance to a highly corrupted world. You have the opportunity to be a part of that process and to evolve your own soul. In the meantime, we are also bearing witness to those that are leasing out their soul to the deity of this world. And it's a painful process because this is apparently a harvesting season. There's something going on energetically that's so strong on the planet, they are going for as many souls as they can turn to the dark side. If you ask me, freeing souls from the deities of this world, that is something worth fighting for. And spiritually, this is why we fight. Okay, this has just begun. And there are things that we're going to see that have the potential to change us, not for the better. And we have to understand that this is their plan, because they want to keep us here. To be armed with knowledge of this is more important than to be armed with an AK-47, being afraid that the immigrants or someone else is going to raid your neighborhood. Ultimately, something truly is watching mankind. The universal creator is watching our every action. And that which surveils us, ultimately, is being surveilled by something else. And what is not allowed is for the free will to be violated. So you are receiving the messages, and it's not just coming from me. We're tapping into this greater awareness that for whatever reason we have been cast down into this world. Some people may have come up from a hell dimension in order to play out these amazing roles. So I'm going to come back with more content. And there's just so much more I have to say. But I'm going to conclude it there.